In the day's other headlines, the Trump administration has sued the state of Maine for allowing transgender athletes to play in women's and girls' sports. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Education Secretary Linda McMahon say that amounts to discrimination based on sex, violating Title IX. Bondi also warned of other consequences.
Maine's leadership has refused to comply at every turn, so now we have no other choice. We are taking them to court. And we are also considering whether to retroactively pull all the funding that they have received for not complying in the past.
The lawsuit is the latest in a growing feud between the administration and Maine's Democratic Governor Janet Mills. Back in February, she told President Trump, quote, "We'll see you in court," when he threatened to pull federal funding for Maine at a White House event. In a statement today, Mills said the issue was not about protecting girls, but, quote, about states' rights against a federal government bent on imposing its will instead of upholding the law. Meanwhile, another Democratic-led state, California, is suing the Trump administration over the president's sweeping tariff policy. Governor Gavin Newsom says Trump lacks the authority to impose tariffs. From a farm in the state's Central Valley, Newsom said tariffs are already driving up prices across California, the nation's largest importer. Mr. Trump has used a 1977 law to justify his executive trade actions in a time of national economic emergency. But the lawsuit argues that levying tariffs is not one of his powers and only Congress has the authority to impose them. An Army base in Georgia has taken back its old name, but military officials say it's in honor of a different soldier than the Confederate general who was once its namesake. A ceremony today officially renamed Fort Moore back to Fort Benning in honor of Army Corporal Fred Benning, who served with distinction in World War I.
He embodies the very spirit we strive to cultivate here at Fort Benning. That spirit, one of dedication, courage, leadership, is reflected here at Fort Benning on our three tenets.
The base was named Fort Moore in 2020 as federal law now prohibits naming military bases after Confederates. Benning, which is home to the elite Army Ranger School, is the second U.S. base to have its name change reversed. Fort Liberty in North Carolina was renamed back to Fort Bragg last month. Puerto Rico is facing a massive power outage across the entire island. It puts 1.4 million customers in the dark, with Easter Sunday just a few days away for the mostly Catholic U.S. territory. The island has dealt with repeated outages since Hurricane Maria crushed its power grid in September of 2017. Officials say they are working diligently to address the outage and find out what caused it. A new CDC study says depression has become more common among U.S. adults and adolescents over the past decade. Over 13% of people aged 12 and older reported experiencing depression over a 2-week period during the survey. That is up from just over 8% the decade before. Rates were higher among women than men. Overall, depression prevalence decreased with age. Despite the high rates, only 40% of people with depression sought therapy or counseling. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said today that President Trump's tariffs could slow the economy and accelerate inflation. That grim outlook sent markets plummeting. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 700 points, but that was actually the smallest drop on the day. The Nasdaq fell by over 3%, while the S&P 500 finished down by more than 2%. Speaking publicly for the first time since leaving office, former President Joe Biden said the Trump administration has, quote, taken a hatchet to Social Security. Biden was the keynote speaker last night at a Chicago conference for the disabled. He never referred to the president by name, but was forceful in his condemnation.
Social Security is more than a government program. It's a sacred promise. They're shooting first and aiming later. And as a result, is a lot of needless pain and sleepless nights.
Biden joins the chorus of Democrats weighing in on President Trump's turbulent leadership, focusing especially on his staffing cuts across the government workforce. And a passing of note. Charismatic game show host Wink Martindale has died. He started as a radio DJ in his native Tennessee before quickly landing his own TV show, where in 1956, a young Elvis Presley joined him for one of his first ever televised interviews. Martindale said those early days prepared him for his decades-long game show run, hosting hits like Gambit in 1972, and then
It's Tic-Tac-Doe! And now here's our host, Wink Martindale.
he led the classic X's and O's puzzle game Tic-Tac-Doe that ran on CBS until 1985. In 2006, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Wink Martindale had been battling lymphoma. He was 91 years old. Still to come on the NewsHour, a whistleblower alleges that Elon Musk's Doge team caused a potentially illegal security breach at the National Labor Relations Board. The Trump administration's latest efforts to slash federal funding for public media. And we report from Chad about systemic sexual violence against Sudanese refugees.
This is the PBS NewsHour from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.